Welcome, everyone. It is May 6th today at time of recording. As always, I'm joined by my friend, my colleague, our colleague, Brian. Brian, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just trying to get ready for this project I got at work coming up. Biggest in my career, biggest in my life, but it's been pretty slow at work. So, don't got much on my updates on myself other than just maybe some tips and tricks, but you know how we do it out here in these streets. How are you,
Yeah.
sir?
Yeah, it seems like you're just kind of treading water until the big kickoff.
Yeah, Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, kind of the same. Not too much going on. I know we were talking before this of, the whole dog chronicles and, yeah, just kind of learning and being patient. Like I was saying, she's very smart, so she knows what she's supposed to do, but is also testing boundaries a lot to see if she can get away with not doing it. Um, like she's supposed to sit and wait anytime a door gets opened, and she'll sit and wait. I go to open the door, I turn around, and she's standing right there behind me. She's supposed to, if I'm in the office, like in my computer chair, she's supposed to be behind me. She's not allowed to go under the desk, like under my feet, because I don't want there to be, if I'm not paying attention or something and like try to roll the chair back and run her over or what have you. So I try to keep her behind me. But she will like start at one side of the room and will crawl, thinking that she's being stealthy. So I hear her and I turn around and, she's 2 feet closer to me. Or, she'll take her ball and like drop it like by my feet to try to put me into a choice of like, well, I can go get it or you can pick it up and you can throw it to me. Um, she's pretty good at the place command. I think that one's easy enough because it's generally around when she's going to get fed. So she knows she's going to get fed if she goes to her place on the couch and waits. But the leash she does not do well with. Whoever at the rescue said that she does well on the leash was clearly lying.
Right.
So we got a like freedom harness. It's like a harness that clips in front of her chest.
Yeah, that's pretty popular these days.
Yeah, so it's supposed to help. Like anytime she tries to pull, it pulls her towards me,
Right.
or gets her to turn around to look at me. So that was helpful, but yeah, she hates it because she doesn't have as much like freedom, and she doesn't like how it turns her when she does pull. But we just tried it out today, and it worked out pretty well. Besides the fact that she hated it, but hopefully, like the problem I think with her sometimes is the frustration gets her out of like her polite dog phase. So she just acts out due to the frustration. So I'm trying to introduce things or set that foundation of like the expectations so that she knows with some of the commands she has a pretty good idea of what she needs to do, and she's starting to get into doing them more often without trying to test boundaries. But there's definitely a few other things. So I did meet with a dog trainer this past week, and it's relatively expensive, but I think it's helpful at the age that she is right now, that she is kind of in this rebellious phase, and just kind of work with her and work with the trainer, but also make sure I keep the same expectations, I keep the same structure. You're getting fed this amount at this time. When it's time to settle down, you need to settle down. And some of those things, but otherwise it's been good. Besides her eating grass, she got a piece of like clumped up grass, it like sticks underneath the lawnmower, and sometimes it'll fall out. If you mow the grass when it's wet, in Michigan in April is you can't really get around. If you want to mow the grass, it's going to be wet typically.
Right.
So she ate a piece of that, and the other night, like she was bad all day, testing boundaries, like very energetic, like just trying to keep her, reined in. Um, and then, yeah, she had eaten that grass, and I was doom scrolling, trying to figure out, and what's going to happen, what's going wrong. Like, I got to go to bed. It's Sunday night. Like, of course, the dog never wants to have an accident or do something that, like, when the bed is open. It's always on the weekends or at nighttime that, like, something happens. So, I had to go to bed, and luckily, my mom's around, so she was up with her, and she ended up puking. I guess puking twice. In the morning time, like, going to the bathroom was kind of tough on her. So we just fed her a bland diet of chicken and rice for a couple days. And luckily, there was a different reason that she had gone to the vet last week. So they'd given us some prescriptions for this mass that she had. Turns out I spent $320 for it to be nothing, which I guess isn't too bad considering it could have been a lot. I could have spent that money. It could have been a lot worse. But I was able to talk to the vet, and she's like, yeah, well, she puked it up. Like, we're not too worried about it, like, poisoning or what have you.
Right.
So Monday was pretty slow moving, until, like, later on in the day, and she started, like, getting her energy back. So yeah, the problem is like the expectation that she was going to get, chicken for every meal now, which, luckily went over pretty well. She's not, like, turning her nose up at the kibble that we've given her. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a big undertaking. I knew that going in. But yeah, some of those times it's just, pretty difficult to deal with. And, I don't know if it's similarly with kids, but they seem to, like, when you're stressed out, like, they seem to pick up on it and want to push your buttons more. And I know they don't mean to, but it's just like the timing of it always matches up that way.
Yeah, maybe sometimes it is, especially when you get as your kid gets older. My son's pretty receptive to, like, our habits, so it's like I think he knows when we're annoyed. He kind of just pushes it up because he just is seeking attention. So he, like, wants to try and get that attention any way he can. Like, he's kind of just at that age, and just really turns the volume up on it. It seems sometimes. I think, like you said, it's kind of just pure coincidence, but uh, yeah, there's growing pains. You gotta kind of grow together, but you being the human in this case, and I'm being the dad. It's we do have to set the expectations, and we just follow through. Being a parent, dog or human otherwise, it's all about finding the best route, and it takes a lot of effort. It's not an easy task. So yeah, my son today didn't we he wanted spaghetti, so we made spaghetti, and then all of a sudden he takes a bite, he's like, I'm all done. Oh, no, you're not all done, pal. Like, you need to keep eating. And it took, I don't know, it felt like an hour. It was really only like 10 minutes to, like, finally get him to continue eating, but it's sometimes nighttime's a challenge. I think that goes for dogs and humans alike. Just trying to find new things every day. So
Yeah. And I think the problem is just you got to be consistent, regardless of how you're feeling. Um, Consistently patient, consistently having the expectations with them, like not letting them get away with something, because they should, maybe if they don't know, but, like, that's the expectation that you have. So you don't want to, allow them to get away with something, and then, like, keep testing those boundaries and see what else they can get away with, and stuff. And similarly to us, like, give ourselves grace sometimes, to give them grace too. With the dog, it's like, yeah, she's very food motivated, so we've been trying to take advantage of that. The problem is like she's whatever trauma that she's dealt with in her life of not knowing when her next meal is going to be. So is like, she ever going to grow out of that? Is she ever going to stop trying to eat things outside that she shouldn't be eating? I'm not entirely sure, but the thought is that I got to set the expectation. Hopefully, one day she learns like, hey, I'm safe, I'm comfortable, I'm being fed. Um, it's a regimented schedule for my feedings and that. So yeah, maybe she'll come around for it. But yeah, some of those days it's just harder to really be patient. And, if they're acting out, it's like, it's not, maybe not their fault that how much they want to act out is aligned with a day that was pretty stressful. So you can't really, still got to just be patient, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still discovering new things every day about being a dad, and my son's growing. I mean, he's 5 years old. He's in that mode where he's going to want to learn how to do anything and everything that he can. Um, and whether he realizes it or not, can test our patience. And my wife and I are working on communicating to each other, like when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Somebody might have to take over. um, it's growing pains for us in our relationship. It's also growing pains in our relationship between each other and with our son. So it's a whole trifecta. Well, like you said earlier, it's all about consistency and setting the right expectations with your son, yourself, your partner, and just openly communicating that and making them understand. So, with a dog, maybe a little bit different. Like, they are very much food and or activity driven. So, you know, um, I don't really have much tips for in the way of dogs. It's been a long time since I've had a dog of my own. So, um, but with kids, they're always kind of looking for a new way to get, at least with my son, he's always looking for a new way to get attention from us because he's a relatively shy kid, so he doesn't necessarily get that at school from other kids. So, he's looking for, I guess, to feed that, or not feed that stimuli, but just get that attention. I lost for my word on that one, but he wants that need filled. And it feels like he's also at that age where he's just like pedal to the metal from 8 a.m. or whatever time he gets up till the time he goes to bed at like 8:30. So, keeping up with that is a full-time job in and of itself. But you got to be ready for the change. You got to be open to new things, and just making sure that obviously they don't hurt themselves, or um, but you set your boundary in a way that is healthy for both people. And um, you kind of just go one step at a time. Like, there's no right answer for any of these things. I don't necessarily call it doom scrolling. Maybe you're just looking up for tips and tricks, but for my kid, I'm always looking up things of, to paraphrase, how to be a better dad to him. I'm always looking for different ways to connect, different activities to do around either the house, or just looking for events that maybe we can go to the park, all these types of things to kind of just like run out his energy and keep him healthy and always engaged. So, I feel like I spend more time than I actually do. I exaggerate times a lot. It feels like I'm work 40 hours and I come home 40 hours, just trying to keep him alive and, full activity ahead. And then I go to bed at 10:30 or whenever I go to bed, and wake up and repeat. Sometimes it's like a Tasmanian devil lifestyle, or just kind of spinning out of control until we go to bed. So, we make the best out of the situations that we have. I know that we're just being better people, and shaping our kids to be better people too.
Yeah. And not to compare, dogs to people, but I think in a higher level, like your children in general, but I think from a higher level, like it's kind of all the same mix of things, right? It's
Oh
like all
yeah, for
living
sure.
things need, you know, sunlight,
Right.
water, and food. Um, but depending on whatever it is, if it's a, you know, children obviously need a lot more stimulation, can really get on your nerves sometimes. Um, but yeah, with dogs, it's kind of similar, and they have their phases, and they're going to act out, and yeah, test your uh, test your nerves every once in a while. Um, I was saying, like, I had a volunteer opportunity today through work, and I signed up for it. I thought it was just like putting together STEM kits for elementary school kids, and it ended up being like, we're sitting in the classroom like with a table of kindergartners. So it's a two-part event, and the first part was today, and apparently I'll be with the same kids tomorrow, but um, like the one kid, and they're all kindergartners, so take it with a grain of salt. But he was very, we're using paper and wood blocks to make a bridge, and there's a car in the bag. Well, he didn't like that car. He wanted the other car that was in like the extra materials in case anything was missing. So I gave him that car, and we're trying to go through the workbook and figure out, okay, well, how many washers, if you build this bridge, how many washers would it take for it to fall off? So I have three kids there, and he's like, I'm going to build a ramp. And I'm like, okay, man, like, you do you. Like, yeah, it's science, supposed to be fun. Let's experiment. Like, yeah, you can build a ramp if you want. Um, and still trying to keep the other two engaged in like the lesson of what we're trying to do. But by God, was he off the walls. So that was the first experiment. The second experiment was using, so it was supposed to be like structurally sound things. So like you build a bridge with a piece of paper, like it's pretty flimsy. It's not going to work. So why don't we try another piece of paper, and we'll fold it over, and we'll put it on the bridge. And then the third step was like, all right, well, if we crinkle the paper, like, what do we think this will be better, and why do we think this will be better? And the end of the lesson was like, well, triangles, if you kind of crinkle the paper to make it like a fan, they're more structurally sound than squares. So the next one was like, okay, well, if we make a cube versus if we make a pyramid, like, which one is more structurally sound? And he was very good at that one, but uh, it was marshmallows and toothpicks. So the teacher had let them know, like, well, you can eat a couple marshmallows once you're done, but you got to get through the experiment. So we got through the experiment, and the teacher let them know all right, well, you can eat a couple, but put the rest in the bag. And those no marshmallows made it into the bag. The bag that they were allowed to take home to do like the experiment at home. Um, so that was kind of funny, but at the end of it, I just go to the teacher. I'm like, yeah, none of the marshmallows made it. And even before I said anything, she's like, I'm sorry that you had to deal with them. And I'm like, no, it's okay. It just, I just kind of feel bad because the other two children like trying to keep engaged and trying to go through the lesson. And he's, my car's a rocket ship now. I'm like, all right, okay, that's good. Um, but it was harder to kind of, it was very overstimulating trying to work through because they're working at different paces. And, when is it a good time to help them or ask them, like, do you need help? Would you like help? Like, ask these questions. Well, how many toothpicks does it take to make a triangle? How many sides does a triangle have? How many sides does a square have? It's like, if we, structurally, if we try to push on this cube, or if we try to push on this square versus if we try to push on this triangle, like, which one feels stronger? And it was supposed to be an experiment like that, but trying to guide them through the lesson and trying to keep all three of them engaged as they're working at their different paces was kind of tough um, in doing that. But no, I just thought it was funny. And and when we were going through the bridge exercise, the teacher had come over, just like asking the one boy about if he was being good. I'm like, yeah, he made a ramp, and um, the car is now a rocket ship. And she's like, okay. um, but yeah, I mean, that's just like, I knew going into it um, that it was gonna be tough. It was gonna be kind of overstimulating, but it's kind of fun. It's just a fun experience. And trying to, they're very sponges, very much sponges for knowledge, and just trying to learn, and trying to get them more engaged with, like, this is what we do if we experiment. Like, if the bridge collapses, it's fine. Like, we failed, but that's how we learn. And I do think a lot of that can be, retaught to me. Like, it's okay if you fail.
Yeah.
It's, we're experimenting with this. So even with, requests I get at work, that's kind of one of the more fun things that I have. It's frustrating, but also fun, because you get that sense of accomplishment when you're experimenting with, for me, like specific data pools or visualizations, or, any sort of code that I'm trying to run, I'm trying to generate, and I have the knowledge of, like, this looks right, or this doesn't look right, or how do we make this better? How do we improve this? Before it actually gets to the end product. So, um, yeah, sometimes in the middle, it's like, well, why isn't this finished yet? Well, I experimented with a whole bunch of different things. I failed a whole bunch of times, but, this is the output. I think sometimes too, it just kind of goes, it just gets overlooked of, all the frustration, all the failures, all the, revamping, remapping of, specific joins and calculations and things to actually get something functional that's, takes a whole bunch of complicated things and, bubbles it up for that specific audience. But yeah, in the same mind too, like, yeah, we're just experimenting. If it's changing a different sleep schedule, or getting a better sleep hygiene or diet or exercise routine or something, it's like, yeah, it's okay. We're just experimenting. Or putting together a podcast where we're,
Yeah,
just kind
building.
of experimenting with, what works best, and what people gravitate towards.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the kid building his ramp for the car and the rocket ship, it's like 5, 6 year old just 101. It's like there are some kids who maybe learn as they go, but and some kids maybe just have it of learning to what the assignment is and just doing it. But there's just some kids who just want to build a ramp for the rocket ship. That's like my kid. He is very good academically, but when it comes to like fine motor skill things like art and um, writing, he doesn't. He's struggling with that, so he has like no interest in it and kind of just does his own thing. But loves playing with. I mean, he's in preschool right now, but he's uh loves playing with like the little baby there, and they have like this little. It's not very big, but it's like a little treehouse isn't the right word, but there's like this little structure that he can play with and play in there, and he loves going up there. But yeah, I mean, kids, kids and animals that we kind of have guardianship or ownership over can teach. They teach us a lot. They kind of force us to learn by failing. Like today I was building a web scraper because I was just feeling incredibly lazy and didn't feel like manually looking for images, product descriptions, and other things for this pretty high end line that we have. We just got some new um, Hans Grohe, which is a very high end faucet brand, and I spent like I don't know a couple hours trying to build a web scraper that would go through Google, because the URL structure for this site that I was scraping was all over the place. And so I was just kind of trying to go through Google, but then after like 50 attempts, I would get reCAPTCHA, so then I would have to pause for 60 seconds. And anyway, it was probably one of the most sophisticated software things I've ever wrote, even though it was probably less than 50 lines of code. Really, at the end of it, I really didn't want to get what I accomplished, but I at least tried, and I made a pretty viable scraper line of code that I can repeat for probably anything else that's not doesn't have to go through Google to scrape a site. So I was still proud of myself at the end of the day. It was frustrating that I kind of spent a couple hours just building this, and it just, no matter what edits I made, I just couldn't really get it to function as expected. But I came away with knowledge at the end of the day of, one, I can do that without really necessarily looking for AI, or I was kind of just doing the old school way of Googling it and trying to figure it out on my own. So maybe not very cash money of me to waste 2 hours of my company's time, but I gotta kind of had to do it. And it's the project that I want to finish by Monday for this upcoming kickoff, and almost any means necessary. But the key takeaway to me is I learned something, and I was proud of myself for writing that code. So always something to be learned in situations like that. And kind of just goes along with being a dad almost. It's like I fail a lot. I sometimes get angry with my kid, and he's not really doing anything that's out of the ordinary, but that's just kind of my first reaction. But being the opposite of a quarterback, you don't sometimes always go with your first read. You got to work through your progression, and that just goes with life. Of, can't always give your kid your first reaction, because if that were my case, I'd probably just yell or laugh at everything that he does. And it's supposed to be like the opposite, right? So just trying to find the balance. Work life, being a good dad, being a good husband. I still working on that aspect of it too. Life is funny, and there's only so many hours in the day that you can devote to these things, and sometimes other things get prioritized, which may hurt other people's feelings, and it is what it is. But I think we can always take solace in that if you put your best foot forward, you're always going to have a good feeling about it. So
Yeah. Yeah, you got to think of the shareholders, Brian. The shareholders, what are they going to do when they learn that you've spent 2 hours of the company time? But no, I mean, I get it. And the whole AI discourse and stuff, and people are like asking me like, oh, have you used Copilot to do analysis on this? I'm like, no, because it'll literally take me more time than it would if I was just do it.
Right. Yeah, you work through your prompts, and it's like, I could have just probably have done this by myself and figured out in the same amount of time or less, or way less. So
yeah. Or when that knowledge of like, well, what is it supposed to look like, or what are we trying to solve, or similarly like with the experiments of how much time does it take me to actually plan out like a good path forward for the steps that we need to take to make this scalable in the future. And what does that look like? And once you can get down to that, then yeah, I will use AI, but I'm not going to one shot it with AI. I'm going to go and fact check it, make sure I'm giving it good responses and good foundation. Or if I feel like I don't need to use it, then trust that I don't need to use it.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the general discourse, I think, in most company cultures. And, my company is no different, but they've taken on a pretty good attitude about it and using it for, augmentation of people's work, so that we can experiment more, do things faster, figure out better ways to do things. But, yeah, it's just kind of the hard part of having that conversation of, well, this process was, I mean, it has gaps. AI can't fix these gaps. Like we're seeing the issues that come up from holding on to this process as a whole. Um, like it needs a revamp. Like before we can even, you know, and we can use AI to revamp it, but we need to figure out what the best path forward is. Um, so
Right. Yeah. I mean, I haven't. I since I've kind of taken, I guess, like a step more into like the administration side of like IT slash like web team, like e-commerce, like whatever you want to call it. I've had to have learned more about like taxonomy hierarchy and how data is structured, from like that standpoint, and building out roadmaps for this project and dates that we want to hit, or at least timelines that we want to hit, and like um to add to the AI discourse, like I kind of consulted it for like, okay, like what does a successful website look like, 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and then 6 months to a year after this kind of like redesign or launch, if you will. Like what are metrics that we should look for? Like should I be asking stakeholders? And it gave me like this chart that was just like all over the place. Like it repeated itself several times, even though I asked it to omit it. And I'm not the probably the most efficient person when it comes to prompting these things, but like I was getting to the point where I was like bringing this to my one-on-one, and I showed my boss. She's like, "What does this even mean?" And I go, "I have no idea. Like, I don't know what a product map is supposed to necessarily look like. I can look one up on Google, but if I were to kind of decipher it one for one on, what the metrics that our site should need, like I wouldn't be able to do that." So it's kind of when I had done this draft with AI, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't like doing AI for any of this." I was like, "Well, apparently I don't either, because this was a horrible experience. Like this was just like prompt after prompt of getting rid of things and adding things and getting more clarity, and it was just not efficient." So um, I just brought that kind of question to my weekly meeting. I was like, "Well, what does a successful website look like to you after this is like essentially asking like what are our goals and what are our plans in that timeline that I kind of stated before?" And like that opened up the discussion. So there's definitely I'm with you, David. Like I still work at a company where we're very much trying to figure everything out. And, you know, when we don't have voices from certain key stakeholders, as ChatGPT likes to refer to it all the time, of, it's kind of hard to have a plan going forward. And I was finally able to kind of flesh those out in that meeting. So, that's just one way for me to learn, or, what I learned from that is don't trust AI for something like that. Just go with your gut instinct and get the information from everyone who you need opinions from, or input from, and kind of go from there. Then that's when you can kind of feed it in AI, and once you get it more down a funnel, I guess is a long-winded way of saying that.
yeah, today I managed to do something in 4 hours with AI that would have taken me 15 minutes if I just did it myself.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's the basis of this. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just the general discourse. And similarly to what I was saying with, like, planning, thinking, what is the best way to go about this? How do we challenge like the AI's output? When do we know, like, this is something that I can do myself and it's not going to take a whole bunch of time? Or some of the other processes and things that have been brought up before of, what do we, um, how do we use it? When do we use it? What is it best used for? Like, it really just missing out on like the whole aspect of like, well, we need to think about this. Like, what problem are we trying to solve? What is it going to take to get there? What is, step one, step two, step three look like? What does version one look like? What do we expect version two to look like? Um, is this something foundationally with a process that can't be solved? Why can't it be solved? It's, a trade-off that we have to make if we want to try to do something differently, and
Right.
acceptance of those trade-offs. So I feel like a lot of times, that's where a lot of the work, uh, where the work lays, of like, okay, well, we have to figure out all of this before we start to work on something. If it was just me, like, yeah, I would think I would take time, I would figure it out, and I would go in with an action plan to be able to get it done. And to your point, like, yeah, I did. I was able to do that with AI, a couple weeks ago, but similar thing. Like most of the time that it took to figure out, like what's the best way to do this? What are we trying to solve? How do we capture things? How do we test to make sure that it's actually working, that there's no gaps? Which just comes from the kind of the domain experience of knowing some of that. And I do think we're kind of at a point too where like we're expected to use it. So people are like saying like, yeah, I used it for this or I used it for that. Whereas other times it's like they don't really want, they don't really want to give AI the credit for things. And, so I want to like seem like it did all the work, and I get it because I deal with, arguing that point all the time of like, this is not the hard part about it. Coding is not the hard part. Acceptance criteria, test cases, requirements gathering, what's acceptable of the requirements, like how does that, um, like all the work that gets done before the work begins is what takes the longest amount of time. Um, and yeah, I mean, it is for its use cases is very good. And I expect that to get better in the future. But as we continue to work and continue to try to solve problems and be able to experiment with more that AI allows us to, um, for my thought is like, yeah, I mean, maybe more of those discussions are going to be happening, but like for pre work. And maybe that becomes more of the bottleneck for trying to decide what problems we wanted to solve. What did we not have visibility to before that we think we need now? But who owns that process? Who's there to escalate things when they notice something that the data is telling them to like get something prioritized and figured out and fixed, um, which I don't think is ever going to go away. Because
No, not especially not in my business. There's always going to be different, just data issues, product descriptions, hierarchical data, taxonomy changes, especially if we move platforms, trying to understand how that interacts with the data that we have. Like transitioning from like big commerce to Shopify. So like basically number 2 to number 1 as far as e-commerce platforms was, I mean, it was a big change. Like, yeah, I mean, the CMS, which is content management system, if for all the WordPress nerds out there, but like they're very similar, but how they structure things are very similar. Like BigCommerce was a little bit, I don't want to say easier, is a little bit more open in how you could kind of structure your data, whereas with Shopify, they're kind of very strict's not the right word, maybe more focused on like the collections, quote unquote. That's kind of how they structure their data, and like they already have a lot of categories and things kind of laid out. So we kind of had spent a lot of time just switching over what we had categorized so it lines up with that. So I mean, to your point, there's, at least in my business, there's always going to be no shortage of just kind of like changeover work, and I don't, at least as of right now, I don't think AI is going to like be able to like speed that up or make that transition without getting some sort of specific agentic model going. So yeah, there's always going to be like communication that has to happen at every job that I don't think AI is ever going to solve, and it's because every problem is going to be unique. and it's going to have a different kind of requirement to increase if you're working on a site like I do, where it's e-commerce of generating revenue, or you know um solving warehouse issues and getting better flows going, right? Like there's always going to be room for improvement, both personally and professionally. No company or anything is perfect. Everything's always changing.
Yeah. That's the growing pains that us as adults have to deal with, like how to navigate this world and keep expectations the way that they are, and find that balance between, the best way to go about things, and just keep showcasing that point. That just trust us and allow us to know, like, we know how to get the job done, and maybe eventually we can take on more. We can solve newer problems. We can solve things faster, but we're just learning as well. So, so pretty much leave y'all with that. Brian, if you have any other closing remarks.
No, I liked our discussion today. It went from dog eating grass to AI not working properly.
Yeah,
but it's
perfectly abridged.
Yeah. But that's no, it was a good conversation. I don't have any closing remarks, so I hope everyone has at least one takeaway from this episode. Feel free to reach out to one of us if not. But we'll talk to y'all next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.